Jonathan Glazer's 2023 film, The Zone of Interest, depicts the daily lives of the Höss family, headed by devoted husband, father, and Nazi commandant Rudolf Höss, on their lovely country estate, conveniently adjacent to his work. Portraying him in the film is German actor Christian Friedel, who got his first film role in Michael Haneke's 2009 film, The White Ribbon. Set in the years just before World War I, The White Ribbon depicts a small German village beset by unexplained incidents of sabotage and hidden domestic abuse. Friedel plays a school teacher, possibly the only decent adult, in a town that seems to be having adverse effects on its children. Watching them back to back, The White Ribbon feels like it could be a prequel to The Zone of Interest. Friedel himself has suggested this in interviews.
I think The White Ribbon from Michael Haneke, there's a connection to The Zone of Interest because the kids we see in The White Ribbon could be the future perpetrators of the Second World War. Yes, this movie is kind of different, but I think a lot about the connection to Haneke. It feels like a sequel from The White Ribbon in some way.
Lieutenant Colonel Rudolf Franz Ferdinand Höss was 13 years old when his namesake, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, was assassinated in 1914, triggering World War I, which is where The White Ribbon ends. Höss enlisted in the German army at the age of 14. After the war, he joined the Nazi Party at the age of 22. After the Nazis came to power, he joined the SS, rose up in the ranks, eventually becoming commanding officer at Auschwitz, which is where The Zone of Interest starts in 1943. So the chronology regarding Höss's generation matches the two films, which share the same concerns regarding human behavior and a clinical, emotionally detached stylistic approach. On the surface, the two films look different. The White Ribbon is black and white and feels like it could be a classic film from the mid-20th century. A visual approach that seems a world away from The Zone of Interest, which was shot digitally on multiple cameras and has the detached yet immersive feel of some unusually high-definition CCTV. But despite certain stylistic differences owing to the two very distinctive and idiosyncratic filmmakers behind them, The Zone of Interest and The White Ribbon share a similarly detached, austere tone. This is accomplished visually by the use of rigidly symmetric compositions that emphasize order and control. The innovative use of sound is a significant feature in The Zone of Interest, where all the unspeakable horror of the death camp is heard and not seen. All the violence in The White Ribbon occurs off-camera as well. This is the way Haneke depicts violence in many of his other films, keeping the atmosphere unsettling instead of thrilling. Of course, the actors are where the emotional distance is most present. While the acting in both films is naturalistic and in no way avant-garde, there is a deliberate emotional restraint, a thin veil of composure, or indifference, or denial, barely covering up unacknowledged feelings. The performances are as much about concealment as they are about expression. Audiences accustomed to the award-winning histrionics in Hollywood films, and in real life, can find this style of acting cold, puzzling, or boring. This lack of emotional signaling to guide the audience goes hand in hand with both films' MO, of withholding the viewer from easy identification. The old good guy versus bad guy paradigm goes straight out the window in favor of ambiguity. For Jonathan Glazer, the key to The Zone of Interest was in not portraying Rudolf and Hedwig Höss, or in fact anyone in the film, as villains.
To try and show these people as people and not as monsters was a very important thing to do. It's very convenient for us to try and distance ourselves from them as much as we can, because obviously we think we could never behave this way, and we don't behave this way. But I think we should be less certain in that.
In his 1975 review of Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon, author and Discordian Pope Robert Anton Wilson explained the methodology behind this ambiguous approach, also utilized by Haneke and Glazer. It would be better to define tragedy as the conflict of ambiguity against ambiguity. The magnificent, almost Euripidean complexity of the final duel in Barry Lyndon is such that, on an emotional reflex level, one has been manipulated to sympathize with both parties and with neither of them. One can neither rejoice with the victor nor hate him, nor can one too easily pity the loser. One has been raised above the mammalian politics of the antagonists, cannot take sides any longer, and can only see with objective clarity the idiocy of the whole value system that made the tragedy as predictable as a cycle in astronomy. Like the observer effect in quantum physics, it's necessary that we always include ourselves in the equation whenever we observe conflict, while at the same time maintaining an impersonal, elevated viewpoint from where we can act with dispassion and clarity. In that regard, these films serve as an important antidote to a lifetime of simplistic morality tales with easy answers, demonizing others as villains and valorizing ourselves as heroes, and contributing to the seemingly endless cycle of disorder and suffering in the process.